From the Life Journal of Thwicca, daughter of Saduk, as translated into Earth-Human English. Ever since I was quite young, I have been learning about the dangers inherent in merely venturing near humans. The very notion of visiting their home planet should have terrified me beyond reason or thought. But as I perambulated from the spaceport with Father, my tentacle firmly ensnared within his, my primary impression was how pretty it all looked. I recognized the blue sky from the image upon the wall in our home dwelling, portraying Father's human friend Serena Hernandez in the process of blowing bubbles using a mixture of liquid dihydrogen monoxide and a chemical called soap. Let me make myself absolutely understood. I do now, and always have, comprehended the danger posed to anyone of my species by what the average human would consider a comfortable environment. If I had not before, it would have been made clear to me when Father came home after the latest Tannarak incursion missing 2 tentacles. Not seared off by a Tannarak heat gun, but an incidental casualty of a skirmish which had seen Serena Hernandez melt half a mountain by way of released body heat, and then nearly freeze to death while wading through molten lava. Mother, of course, was shocked and horrified by this, but the worst was yet to come. After Father's tentacles were replaced by a combination of our science and theirs, constructed from lightweight but insanely temperature-resistant materials and mated to his nerve web, the invitation had come for him to journey to Earth, just as Lieutenant Commander Hernandez had come to Faz-Reep. As I understood matters, they wished to reward him for his part in saving Serena Hernandez's life, at great risk to his own. To withstand the impossibly high temperatures, he was to be fitted with a heat suit, more or less the precise opposite of what the redoubtable Lieutenant Hernandez had been wearing when she destroyed the Tannarak raiding party, saved Father from the avalanche, and created the newly named Serena Valley. However, and this is where Mother's lack of happiness came in, they wished to ensure Father's safety and so offered to construct a second heat suit for whomever he chose to have accompany him. I am sure they were expecting him to nominate the officer from the security forces who had been there for the Tannarak incident. But he expressed discontent with the officer's grasp of just how fundamentally dangerous it could be to ignore the physical differences between ourselves and humans. And so I was offered the place and was accepted. It was a daring step for me, but I had good, logical reasons for it. I was training for the manipulation of high-end materials, and it could only benefit my education to observe how commonly solid substances such as oxygen, nitrogen, and dihydrogen monoxide acted in their gaseous and liquid states. In this way, Earth was not unlike a large-scale laboratory for my edification. Of course, this was not the only reason I accepted Father's invitation. I had originally met Serena Hernandez when I was quite young, first over a remote screen and then via telepresence robot. She was at the same time charmingly weird and so similar to us that I could not help liking her. Also, she enjoyed hugs just as I did. My species does not possess a singular organ analog to the human heart, but if we did, hugs would be the way to mine. As we passed into the direct glare of Earth's primary, I raised one tentacle to shade my gaze while I peered at it. My facial shield dimmed the light enough that I could see without being dazzled, and I took a moment to marvel at the idea of living so close to a sun that the temperature difference between sunlight and shade could vary by more than the survivable range back on Faz-Reep. Don't linger too long in the sunlight, Father suggested. Our suit refrigeration units are extremely sturdy, but we do not wish to risk overloading them. I knew he was worried less for his own safety than my own, which made me wish to remind him that I was almost an adult in my own right. The safety briefings for the suits had been comprehensive, and I had paid close attention. There were insulating layers sandwiched with thermal superconductors, which were in turn linked to slimline induction units designed to absorb any energy that crept through the insulation and conduct it again to the outer layer, which was designed as a radiator. Some of these materials were among those I was learning to understand. It was a very exciting time, as my generation were the first to be able to study them as a regular learning aid, rather than in highly classified laboratories. In an emergency, we could trigger the refrigeration units to go into overdrive, which would theoretically freeze the gaseous oxygen and nitrogen around us into insulative rocks. This would only last for 3 or 4 minutes, which would be hopefully enough time for help to arrive. Help, in this situation, was a mobile chamber large enough to house Father and myself, equipped with its own refrigeration unit. I had practiced entering it in drills, but I did not wish to employ it in a genuine emergency, for that would spell the end of this visit. A familiar human figure approached us. I was able to distinguish one human from another, but no more than that for most of them. Serena Hernandez was the only one I had known for the entirety of my life, and I would have recognized her under virtually any circumstances. She smiled, the oddly human gesture stretching her mouth, and I responded by waving my tentacles in greeting. "Saduk," she said, her tones conveying happiness. "Thwicca. It's good to see you both." "Wow, you've really grown, kiddo. How are your studies going?" "My tutors tell me I am progressing well," I said, pulling my tentacle free from Father's and raising all four of them for a hug. Serena, like all humans, was much taller than me, but she went down onto her prominent leg joint, I believe my human biology course called it a knee, and wrapped me up anyway. I held her close enough for my suit's exterior sensors to pick up the regular bumpy dump of her heart, pumping the weird human mixture of liquid dihydrogen monoxide, other compounds, and biological material, basically biomagma, throughout her body. It felt good. "Well, that's great to hear." Serena stood, then took my tentacle in her oddly jointed hand, while I allowed Father to take one on the other side. She slowed her pace to match ours as we perambulated toward what I recognized as a human transport, given that it was huge by our standards and built from materials I barely recognized. My tentacles itched to examine it up close. My interest in the vehicle was interrupted when I noticed other movement. On either side of us I saw more humans moving in unison with us. I could not be certain, but they seemed to be carrying long objects made of impossible metal. They wore exterior clothing that was all the same, a little reminiscent of Lieutenant Hernandez's military uniform but not identical to it. "Who are they?" I asked, gesturing with my spare tentacles. "And what are they carrying?" "Their security, to ensure nothing stupid happens here on Earth, especially with two of you visiting," Serena said. "The weapons they are carrying are assault rifles, firing high-velocity metal slugs. If you see one being pointed anywhere near you, drop flat and stay there, okay?" "I understand," I said. "But what I do not understand is why you need such security. The Tannarak could scarcely penetrate this far into your solar system, much less mount an assault on your planet merely to assassinate Father and myself." I waved a tentacle and watched my shadow move accordingly. "I am in more danger from this sunlight than from them." "This is true," Father said. "But humans are strange creatures. They only began traversing their solar system perhaps 8/8 of their solar orbits ago. They have many different cultures, some of which are violently opposed to one another. And some hold exceedingly strange beliefs, to the point that they would hate and fear us solely because we come from afar and look unlike them." "But that is why I like Serena," I protested. "She is interesting and different." "As your dad said, exceedingly strange beliefs," Serena sighed. "People like that are few and far between, especially since the benefits started flooding in from the Earth-Phasreep hybrid research teams. But that's another thing us humans are really good at, grabbing hold of an idea and refusing to let it go." I turned to look at Father. I thought I was like that. "You are, little wriggler, you are." Father looked up at Serena, then back to me. I suspect Serena meant to say, "Grabbing hold of a bad idea and refusing to let go." "Yes?" Serena nodded, that strange brain case movement that nobody of my species could ever duplicate. "Yeah, that's about right. I mean, it suits us well when a problem needs to be fixed, but sometimes it bites us in the ass." I giggled at her vivid imagery. "I shall attempt to only hold on to good ideas and let bad ones drift away on the wind." "You know what the trouble with that kind of resolution is?" Serena looked down toward us both. "Of course." Father's long association with her had allowed him to understand her thought processes as well as any of our two species comprehended each other. Every idea looks like a good one at first. The trick lies in distinguishing the clean samples from the dross. "Got it in one, Saduk." Serena reached over the top of my brain case to offer Father a high five, which he returned with one of his artificial tentacles. We entered the transport, and Serena secured herself with a flexible strap that ran across her body and back. Father and I were able to fasten them around ourselves, though I was entirely fascinated with the materials they were constructed from. "Are these hydrocarbons? What are the solidification and vaporization temperatures?" Serena laughed. "Now, that I don't actually know, but we can talk to people after the ceremony who do. We've got any number of folk from a bunch of scientific fields who are here just because they heard you were going to be attending and want to invite you to study on Earth. Make sure to check out Part 2.